this thing on? All right. Wow. First of all, I want to say welcome and thank each and every one of you for being here today as we celebrate the life of my mom, my dad's wife, Esther, as most of you know her, Lynn Semones Davis. I'm Tim, if you didn't know. Lynn was my mom. I wanted to point out something in the program real quick, if you would open to the first page. We made a couple of typos. If you look at the list of people who's speaking, one of the names listed is Denise Rosenthal. It's actually Denise King. And we wanted to apologize ahead of time and say we're sorry about that mix-up there. Again, thank you all for being here today. I want to remind everyone that this is a celebration. We're here to celebrate the life of one incredible person. And in turn, celebrate all of our lives at the same time. I want everybody to know, including you, Dad, it's okay to cry. I'm going to cry at some point in time here, and it's okay. We have name tags in the back. If you haven't grabbed a name tag, we would appreciate it if you did so. We're going to have snacks here for after the service, commemoration. And the bathrooms are located through those double doors on both your sides. That'll be great. It's a beautiful day, appropriately so, for such a beautiful soul. As this program continues, I will be introducing the speakers as they come up. And again, I'm kind of struck here. Short story before we officially get started. Mom told me and Dad she didn't want a big service. And I mean, wow, look at everybody here. This is just so incredible. So, without further ado, let's get this thing started. First up, we're going to have Mom's sister, Nita, say a few words. We'll head down the list. We'll eventually have an open mic for those who would also like to share. We're going to ask, just a couple memories. We have the event's supposed to be from 2 to 4, but they are gracious enough to say, hey, you guys can stay till midnight, so take that as you will. Thank you all once again. If you're the one speaking, it's okay to take off your mask.
Thanks again, everybody, for being here. It's wonderful to be here too, because I didn't get to meet. It's better to go ahead and start crying right away, right? The wonderful community that Reed and Lynn and Tim have lived in for so long. So it's really good to be here. I'm here from Wisconsin, and happy to be here from Wisconsin right now because it's chillier up there. Last October is the last time when a lot of our family was together, and we celebrated the life of our mom and grandma. And it was really wonderful. I spoke there too, and had to put my life in context with the rest of the family. And I just want to say that I'm the youngest of 5, so I'm the youngest child in the family, and that worked out pretty well for me, I think. Lynn is the first child in our family, the first grandchild on either side of the family, so she was a very special person, just having that role. And then the next 4 were born in like 5 years or 6 most. I mean, like, they were like bam, 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 bam. And then it was about 8 years before I came. And so I was definitely not quite one of them, but looked up to all of them. My perspective on Lynn's life mainly comes from she's my big sister, I'm her little sister perspective. Mary and Joe are here today too, so if you'd like to get a different perspective on how Lynn was to grow up with, that's who you should talk to. So I don't have any real particular memories, like as a toddler, preschooler, but I started having them about Lynn anyway, when she went away to college. But as a young one, I know that she must have spent a lot of time with me and nurtured a great relationship, because I was very connected with her. And in retrospect, I imagine she was kind of like a second mom to me for a lot of reasons. And so when she went away to college when I was 6, it was kind of like, oh my, this is awful. And but I remember when she came home, I feel like I was like a puppy. Minnie, so excited every time. And one time I got to go to, I think I spent the night in her dorm room and went out with her college friends, and we ate tater tots. That was the very first tater tot I ever had. Pretty exciting for a 7-year-old or whatever. I imagine that the keen observation she had of me growing up might have fueled or it certainly informed her interest in teaching, which she spent her main career doing as an elementary school teacher. After she went to college the first time, she came home and lived at home for a while, and then lived in Tulsa, which is our hometown. And I spent a lot of time with her then. I was probably late elementary, early middle school, or junior high age. And those are when I have the most clear memories. I'm gonna read because I'm going off. Oh, yeah, okay. So, I hung out a lot with Lynn, and she had posters. You know, in the 70s, everybody had these big posters in their rooms and stuff. That was really cool. She didn't have a black light, which was really cool, but she did have posters, and I remember a couple of them only. One of them was, said, "Behold the turtle. He makes progress only when he sticks his neck out." Does anyone remember that? I looked it up, they're still around. And one poster that came to mind, though, when we were thinking about this service is one that had the Desiderata on it by Max Ehrman. And I remember that I had to really focus on reading all of those small words because it had a lot posted on one poster. So I'm going to read that for you in just a minute. But I think the Desiderata embodies how Lynn impacted my life, and in part how she lived her life. It contains philosophical desires, encouragement, words of wisdom, and I asked to read that for this gathering. So I'm going to read it now. I want you to feel free to close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and just listen to the Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. And listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. bear vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. I'm grateful for Lynn's life-changing presence in my world and in the world of all who knew and loved her. She continued to be a supporter and friend throughout her life. It was an honor and a gift to be able to give back to her and support Reed and Tim in her last months. I sent her a card a couple of years ago that said, "All I ever wanted was to be loved just the way I am." And I thanked her for doing just that. I know that her love will nurture me forever. Thanks.
Thank you, Nita. That was beautiful. Next up, we have Miss Linda Seligman.
The perils of looped earrings and masks, they all get caught up together. It's an honor to be here, and I'm delighted to see all these people here who love Lynn and Tim and Reed, and thank you for being here. Our friendship started long distance. My family and I were living in California, and we decided to move to Carborough because I understand that was the place that we should put a barbed fence around. So I thought that's where we should go. I contacted the Unitarian Universalist Church in Chapel Hill to find connections in the area. Fortunately, that connection not only got us our real estate person that helped us find our house, but the biggest gift was that Lynn came forth to help our family settle into this area from across the country. Who would have known that she and her family would become what I call Friends' family? That Lynn would become a dear friend, someone I know I could always depend on, and that I'd be there for her. Lynn, Reed, and Tim took my husband Andy in for about a month so he could look for jobs. Our sons, Tim and Nick, wrote to each other. They were both going into 8th grade. It was from Lynn's kindness to extend her hand and heart and helped us get established in the community. She showed us around town to learn the lay of the land, good restaurants, parks, and stores. I remember one day she took us shopping in Carborough to Harris Teeter, and I kept asking, is it Harris Teeter or Tweeter? And I really wanted to know. And she very patiently, it's Teeter. She gave me the names of her doctor, pediatrician, dentist, and chiropractor, and they were all really good suggestions. In fact, I still have some of them. She really helped us feel at home and welcomed. We shared a love of gardening and went exploring into different native plant nurseries and botanical parks. We shared plants from our gardens. I learned about the blackberry lily from her, and she taught me about the many North Carolina plants that thrived here. Lynn liked to send me an amaryllis at holiday time, and they continue to live happily outside my house during the year, and then they bloom in the garage in the wintertime. And I think of the lilies and amaryllis when I think of Lynn as Lynn's plants, and I'll always fondly grow them. We invited each other's families to our homes for dinners and shared many holiday meals. The kids played, rode bikes, skated, and played video games. A lot of video games. Lynn was always so warm and generous, but she wasn't one to draw attention to her acts of generosity and love. Instead, she embodied them and acted on them. My kids looked at her as another mother. They knew she had her loving eyes on them, so they couldn't get away with much of anything. We were like aunties for each other's kids, and our husbands as honorary uncles. And they were like cousins or brothers and sisters as part of each other's families. We also shared the profession of teaching. She taught 1st grade and I taught 2nd grade. We talked shop about our teaching woes, frustrations, shared teaching resources, and stories of love in teaching. Being an aware human being and mother, she naturally included her life experiences, Native American and African American stories into her classroom, and always taught and worked with her students from her heart. Over the years, hundreds of children and their families have benefited from Lynn's compassionate teaching and modeling of loving kindness. The world is a better place from her efforts and dedication in educating our children and supporting their families. Over the years, we knew each other. We shared our lives and supported each other as we each suffered losses of family members and friends. Seeing our kids get their wings and fly to their new homes and habitats, retiring and traveling. We attended many marches and demonstrations about school funding, voting, housing, defending the needs of the underserved, and advocated for justice issues that we believed in. We hope to get into more trouble together after we both retired. After Lynn retired, there was no stopping her from being in service to others. She knit baby hats for newborns, and blankets, and donated them to the hospital. She was active in the local food pantry, helping families get what they needed. She also took voting seriously and staffed many a table to register voters, an issue we both felt very strongly about. And I will volunteer this year in her name. So my dear friend Lynn is physically gone, but she's still very much in my heart and in the hearts of our families. I appreciate the gift of her friendship, the inspiration of her compassion, and all her love and dedication to others. Thank you, Lynn. You've been a very precious gift.
Thank you, Linda. That was absolutely lovely. Next up, we have Denise King.
Thank you for the short people. Hi all. I'm here as a neighbor, and Lynn was my neighbor who became a good friend. I think it probably would have been impossible for her to be in your proximity and to not become your good friend. I first met Lynn about 21 years ago when she and Reed and Tim moved in next door on Sudbury Lane. And Lynn embodied the loving thy neighbor as thyself. She was the epitome of that. Early in our friendship, we did a lot of just chatting over the back fence or across our adjoining driveways. And our friendship developed in a way that was just so gentle and so natural that I couldn't actually point to how it actually began. It just evolved that way. One of my clearest memories is she had this habit of we'd each be out weeding in our front gardens, which seems like the never-ending battle, doesn't it? And she would just finish her weeding or even probably abandon it, and she would just wander over to my yard and she would start picking weeds alongside me. Like, who does that? But she did. And we would just weed in silence, and eventually we spent so much time doing things like that that I built a little stone patio, and I took some of the stones and I made a bench so we could sit and have our tea on those really hot days when we would finish our weeding. But that just really embodies to me a lot of who she was, someone who would just pitch in as a natural extension of herself. And when I think of Lynn, I just get that visual of her listening to her audiobook and working in the yard or walking, and she just had this, always this peaceful, just demeanor about her that I really love. I was chatting with my daughter earlier. So I grew up in Brooklyn, which is very different, I think, probably from how Lynn grew up. And she developed this habit at some point of, she wouldn't knock or ring the doorbell, she would just walk in. And it was a little disconcerting at first, but it made me feel loved, like more, just like, oh, so we've gone from neighbor to friend to, I guess we're kind of family. And I'll just, try to rein in that instinct and go with it, because it was actually really nice. It took a little getting used to for me. But we shared a lot in common. Like Linda said, we had a love of reading, of teaching, of gardening and crocheting, and I just really always enjoyed her company. She was just someone who was really easy to be around, and she was the very best neighbor anyone could hope for. But Lynn was also my neighbor at school. I taught at Smith Middle, and she taught next door at Sewell. And for a couple of years, we partnered up our students, and we had a reading buddy program. I had 6th and 7th graders who were really struggling readers, and it was a really nice match with her 1st graders. And just as she made me feel welcome all the time, she made my students feel so welcome in her classroom. Even after Lynn retired, she stayed involved, and she volunteered to help me teach a group of 6th graders to crochet. And we made blankets to donate to the House of Healing in Durham. And she stepped up. Weaving in ends, if you crochet, is the most boring, tedious part. And I think it might have been she and Linda, actually, who she wove in all of those ends before we donated the blankets. She was always happy to lend a hand and to pitch in. She would help me. We have an annual thing each year where we take students to see the Nutcracker. Students wouldn't be able to go otherwise. And I invited her one year, and she, of course, immediately volunteered to help drive. And she was always just doing things like that, just without even a thought. That's just who she was. Personally, she helped me out in so many ways too. I think in the early years, right after I met Lynn, I was going through a really tough divorce and a really hard time. Oops. And she just did these little anonymous things. She would leave a gift on my porch, or she would sit and listen to me and have a cup of tea and just listen with her heart. She did a lot of little things, I think, behind the scenes that I know it was her. Nobody said anything. It had to be. And I was very grateful for the kindness and the way she did things. I came to trust her so much that she knew I was really worried about being a single mom and something happening to me, because I really didn't have any family. And she took on the job of being the executor of my will in case something happened to me, until I met my husband and got married and my kids were adults. And I knew she would have my back if something happened to me. It was a really sad day for me when the Davises moved from Sudbury. I was really glad that we kept in touch and we had more celebrations together. It was, of course, not enough time. I wish we had more time. And I also recently moved out of the neighborhood. This week, it would be 13 years since my mom died. And Lynn gave me a camellia when she died, which is in full bloom right now. And I barricaded that camellia. Our neighborhood is notorious for herds of deer, and they eat everything. But I really protected that camellia. And the 6 months before I knew we were going to move, I root pruned it so that it would be safe to move, and we moved it to our new home. And I surrounded it with daffodils, which were my mom's favorite. And I also took with me, Lynn had given me peonies, which I think belonged to a neighbor of hers in Tulsa. So I divided those, I left some for the new neighbors, and I brought those with me too. Those are the things I brought to my house. And the camellia is thriving in my garden, and I know that the peonies are about to wake up from their winter nap. And when I pull in my driveway, I see both of those at the same time, and I think of my mom and I think of Lynn, kind of in the same thought, and it really brings a smile to my face. So really good neighbors, like really good friends, are very hard to come by. I will treasure my memories of Lynn and think of her often as I now listen to my own audiobooks, as I'm now retired and putter in my garden, and I will treasure all of her memories.
Thank you, Denise. That was powerful. Next up, we have Cindy Semones. Unfortunately, she could not attend today. In her place, my dad will be reading words that she emailed to us.
Cindy Semones, almost sounds like Semones. Not quite, slightly different, but she was Lynn's teaching assistant and a friend as well. And she writes, Lynn was my friend and coworker. We worked well as a team. She let me work with the children like I was a co-teacher, not just an assistant. She made me feel valued. When the children are not with us, Lynn and I shared time together talking about our family. We got to know each other, and I got to know Tim and Reed. And Lynn was a generous and caring person, which you're hearing often here. I know how much she loved her family and cared about our students. When I decided to retire, Lynn said she would retire also, because she couldn't imagine continuing without me. That will always be a special memory for me. I will miss meeting up with her for lunch or coffee, or to catch up on each other's lives. I'm grateful that our last visit together was in her apartment for dinner.
Thank you, Cindy, out there. Next up, we have Ms. Lynn Pierce.
It is such an honor to be here and to celebrate the life of Lynn, because I've not known her as long as most of you have. I got to meet Lynn in 2016 when I became the director of the Safe Food Pantry on 87 South. And it was a new gig for me. I had moved from substance abuse and mental health advocacy to food pantry, which I didn't know anything about. And I didn't know how to make sure there was even food in this food pantry. Come to think, I'm not quite sure why they hired me. As soon. But the glory of it and the celebration is I didn't have to worry about it because I kept noticing that there was a slightly older lady who just kept showing up, like every day. And she'd get in her car and she would run to Food Line or other places and she would fill that SUV with milk and she would bring it back and she would put it in the refrigerator. And then she'd do it again. And I think it took maybe 8 trips just for the milk. And then when the milk was done, she would go start getting cans of food. And it was just amazing. You know, I was telling Sharon, I'm no longer with SAFE, but the board of directors is here today with me, Sharon Brignon, that Lynn and Reed, you know, in those early days before, you know, we kind of advanced with a regional food bank, they literally kept that food pantry stocked with food. Because somebody had to do it, and it was so time consuming, so heavy. And I never heard Lynn complain. You know, she would be back there in that distribution for hours, because, you know, once she brought the food back, it had to get stocked. And she never complained about it. She, you know, besides the physical labor and generosity that she provided during that time, when she would come in and interview with our members, and the empathy and the compassion that she had when she was talking with somebody, you know, as you've already heard, there was a genuine feeling of, I really do care and I really want to help. And if there was a resource that somebody needed, if she didn't already know what it was, she would know before they left and went home. You know, at that time, you know, as a new director for a new nonprofit, you know, she was so invaluable to me in helping me be able to focus on some other stuff, because, you know, I knew that food part, that distribution was going to be taken care of. I you know, they said, don't even worry about it, and I did have to. You know, I was looking through, you know, Lynn's life here and everything, and you know, I've had, you know, the big honor of developing the relationship. I feel kind of cheated because, you know, I've only known her since 2016, and as somebody that really believes in a lot of the same advocacy work that she has done, and a lot of the same issues, you know, it's really important. I love to look at the people in front of me and the people that help pave the way. And that's, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, we've lost an elder in that sense. You know, the model that she has set is a pretty high bar for me, and probably for a lot of us. You know, Lynn didn't just talk it. You know, Lynn walked it, and not only in food insecurity, but, you know, she would be at safe events and registering voters. Anytime you saw her, and you know, I'm not kidding, anytime you saw her, there was something going on trying to help somebody in need. And that is absolutely something to celebrate. And it's something that we all, and especially me, you know, I've been in nonprofit 25 years, and I feel like when I look at her life, I'm just beginning. She was an amazing lady. I wish that I had had more time with her, but she definitely left a guidebook for me to be able to follow on how I can help others in society, Tim Reed and the rest of our family. Thank you, and our prayers are constantly be with you. And wow, just an amazing lady, you know. And I don't think she wants us to be sad about it. I don't even think she wants us to call her an amazing lady. She would just say, get out there and help others. So, you know, that's the biggest way to honor her. Thank you.
And thank you, Lynn. That was absolutely perfect. Next up, we have Miss Martha Varley.
Shortly after my family moved here, oh yeah, tall people. Thank you. It's me and Lynn and all her family. Shortly after my family moved here, I met Lynn at the community church in Chapel Hill. Together, we led the effort for the congregation's goal of ending hunger by organizing a crop walk, both in 2005 and 2006. A few years later, I started a book club, and lucky for us, Lynn was willing to join. We called our book club the Quad County Book Club. You guessed it, because we were from 4 different counties, from Orange, Durham, Chatham, and here in Alamance County. We met at a centrally located restaurant, and I'm guessing you probably think that that's because then we each had a shorter distance to go to get to book club, but that's not why. It's because then nobody had to clean their house, and nobody had to put out food. So we always met at a restaurant, and we continue to do that. Our book club members have written these sentiments that they wanted to share about Lynn. So what I've done is I've written this letter to Lynn because I want her to know the mark she left on us. Dear Lynn, we were impressed that you were dedicated to the value that each person must do their small part to effect change on a larger scale. From registering people to vote, to subtly teaching us by example, when at the end of the meal, this reusable container would magically appear out of your bag and land on the table at the restaurant for your leftovers to go in, to take home, instead of one of those throwaway styrofoam containers. We all thought that was a great idea, but we weren't all that great at the execution of what Lynn did every single time we met. Lynn, your moral compass was about acting, not just talking about societal woes. We appreciated your passion and knowledge about civil rights, and we enjoyed those stories about Oklahoma too. We appreciated the variety of books that you recommended that we read. Thank you for broadening our literary worlds. Most of all, well, maybe not most of all, but we really miss your singing voice. Because this year, and what club members will hopefully agree, this year, without her, our annual Christmas potluck and carol sing-along was, well, pretty anemic. Without Reed and Lynn, we were really struggling. So we will miss your warm smile, your kind heart, your insightful comments, and your ready laugh. Your soft voice and kind words always conveyed your compassion and your intelligence. Your presence is missed. You were gone too soon, but your spirit will remain with us. Love from the Quad County Book Club. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Martha. That was extremely gracious. Next up, we have Laurel Holtz Oxley.
Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for asking me to say a few things about Lynn. It's a real honor. I bring greetings to you from a very serious group called Crochet and Complain. We have a lot of members here locally and in other states and even a couple of other countries. And now that COVID has lessened a little bit, we've come back to meeting in person besides just meeting on Zoom like we did during COVID. And this wonderful place is one of the places that we meet, and this is where Lynn would usually show up on Wednesday mornings. Our statement with a tongue firmly planted in our cheek was that everybody who participates either needs to crochet or complain. And you know that she obviously crocheted in that case because she wasn't one to complain, she was one to go out and accomplish things and try to make, through her time and effort, the world just a little bit brighter. I'm blessed that she found us. I'm truly surprised she had time to spend with us, and I'm grateful for that. Her regular habit was to show up probably a little late. I assumed she was off doing something else for someone else, probably. And most of the time she would show up with some baby hats to give to our person who's collecting them all up to give to the NICU patients at UNC. And we had this running gag during our get-togethers. There's someone here who would always ask her, Lynn, you're so much older than us, or older than me. I need your advice about something. Well, the truth of the matter is, Lynn was 2 days older than this person, but she rubbed it in whenever she did. It was just something that happened pretty much every time we got together. And that other person reveled in the fact that she was 2 days younger. Lynn also invited the crocheters into the house, into her beautiful house, several times. We enjoyed relaxing. We haven't mentioned Opie, the wonderful dog. My husband was over there one time, and Opie just could not get enough of my husband, and my husband couldn't get enough of Opie. We always had nice food, friendship, just a place where you could relax and breathe a little bit. Even when she became limited in function, she still found ways to love people and care for people practically. She would enlist him to drive, and he would drive her around to go to different people's houses to leave stuff for them. And there were several of us in the group that had that happen, where she would write a check for something that was going on and just show up, or food, or you know, something would happen along those lines. And in my case personally, October 2020 was when my mother passed away, and of course it was COVID at the time, and my husband's very high risk, and we weren't about to fly, so we were going to make this long, arduous journey all the way to Minnesota. And she recruited Reed, I don't believe she was driving at the time, to come to drive her over to our house and leave us a card and some money. And she made sure that she didn't say this is for a memorial, she said this is for your travel expenses, because she knew we were going to have a long journey. So to say that we were touched by that would really be an understatement. And I know there were others in our group that were loved on that way too. It was indeed a privilege to know her. I appreciate both of you asking us to bring a little bit of word from Crochet and Completing, and I appreciate participating in the celebration of such an amazing lady.
And thank you, Laurel. That was masterfully pieced together. Next up, we have Miss Robin Rosenthal.
Hi, everyone. Cup 22, just in case you're not from right around here, it's right up there on the other side of that curtain. Cup 22 is a coffee shop where a bunch of us hang out every Sunday and just talk with each other and help take care of each other. And one of the things that I want to tell you is point out to you the people from Cup 22. This is not a huge group of people. This is just a small group. So if I call your name, if you would wave or stand up, because I see you in the back. Sue, Christine, Mary, Frank and Duran, Harry, and Jim. Did I leave anybody out? And Reed, of course, and Lynn. So this is a small group of people who just hang out together every Sunday and take care of each other. And I've only been here for 2 years. And the way I found out about this group of people was the last person I stayed with at an Airbnb was part of this group, and she told me about them. So I had a ready-made family when I moved here, when I retired, which for those of you who have moved around ever know that that is a pretty amazing thing to have 15 or 20 people to hang out with in a new town. And the first day that I was at the group, I sat next to Lynn. And I told her that what I was still interested in carrying with me after I retired was my work with diversity. And she told me all about Tim and how much he meant to her and how much that work meant to her. Because to her, diversity and inclusion was not a theory, it was not a model, it was lived experience. And racism and working against racism was something that was tremendously important to her. And she gave me books, and we talked about things every week. It was just really amazing. And even after she was sick, she made sure to get books to me so that I would keep growing and reading and learning in my efforts. The other story I want to tell you about happened about a year after I joined the group. I had a friend come and visit. And of course, you know, this is a group of people now that I know for about a year, but it's a little scary to bring a new friend in. You're not sure how they'll be treated. And Lynn had said to me beforehand, she said, "Oh, your friend who's coming, she's the one who had COVID, didn't she?" And I said, "Yes, she did." And by that time, Lynn already knew she had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. And she was curious about whether some of what she was feeling might really come from COVID and not from the brain tumor. And she really wanted to talk to my friend. And when she engaged this stranger in conversation, she did it so beautifully and so caringly. It was not, "I need this information from you, I'm gonna pick your brain, I'm gonna make you crazy by asking you all these questions." She was so caring and compassionate about talking with her that they discovered, in addition to having most things in common, that they had both lost their mothers to COVID. So they had a lot to talk about.
Thank you, Robin. That was absolutely terrific. Next up, we have Mr. Harry Phillips.
Tim, Reed, thanks gentlemen for asking me to say a few words. An honor to speak for a little bit about Lynn. For many months, Lynn was a regular presence at the daily vigils in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. For me, it was always so reassuring when she was there, not only because we were obviously the two old-timers in the group, but because she carried herself with such dignity. She knew why she was there. She knew why she attended those vigils every day for many months. Because she recognized injustice in our country, in our community. And she recognized that to live in a democracy, it's important to step up when one experiences injustice. And Lynn did that. And she did it so well. She was so quiet, but everybody felt her. It was rare when we had a chance to talk after a vigil, but often pretty much every time we were together, we would look at each other. And we would look and we would hold our look, we would hold our gaze for I don't know how long, but we knew why we were looking at each other. Because we both shared this sense of purpose, this sense of responsibility. And I felt so strongly about Lynn in that context. I never got to know Lynn as deeply as I wanted to. And the image that comes into my mind when I say that, it's like when those of you who can remember listening to top 40 tunes when you were in high school, and you just never got to hear that one song that you really loved as much as you wanted. That's the way I always felt about Lynn, is that I never had a chance to have as many conversations with her as I wanted to. She was such a genuine person and such a good listener. Things that are so important to us today, to all of us, all the time. So it was primarily in the context of those daily Black Lives Matter vigils that I came to respect and appreciate Lynn so much. It was just a wonderful sub-language connection that we had, and I valued it so much.
And thank you, Harry. That's invaluable of you to share that with us. Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Dana Courtney.
I'm Dana Courtney, I live up in Graham. Thank you. I feel so humble, not only from all that I learned being connected with Lynn, but hearing all of your wonderful sharings. And I think how much I have missed. I went in total seclusion about 2 years ago, and I missed a lot. But I had some good times with Lynn as she came to our political action committee. We are not a fundraising or a money outfit. We are an advocacy group within WCD. We write letters, we sit in people's offices in Raleigh. We sit in front of the libraries and inside the libraries and at any festival that we can learn about. And we push voter registration and voting. And from all I've heard here this afternoon, I take a back seat to all that Lynn has done for us. And it's even scarier to think about if we don't pick it up this year, how we may lose some people that just say, oh, it's 90 cents in voting. I was tempted on the first couple of two comments that people made about me, and I found myself wanting to write it down and ask her to do that, and I thought, it's real. But there's so many things that she did that I never thanked her for as committee chair. I just never knew how much she was doing. As others, we have people here, we have a president here, Ms. Barrett Brown, we have 2, 3, 4 other good folks seated around him. And it is a team effort to do the committee work for NAACP, and by golly, she carried her weight. I never will forget when I first started, I was carrying the buckets of stuff in her, bags full of stuff. And I was really getting tired of hunting up something to eat and drink at meetings. And so Sally over there, she started baking, and somebody else brought something, and somebody else brought something. And at times we had 15 or so committee people there. And then one day Lynn said, "Do you want me to just do this, take it over?" And I thought, that's too much for her to have to do, but she said, "I want to," and I believed her, and we had goodies from then on. Anybody want to bring something along, they could, but we didn't have to worry that we wouldn't have anything. The other neat thing about this is that she'd be there before I got there. And it's always, as a committee chair, it's always my worry that we won't have anybody who has free time to come. She'd always be there and calm my nerves and help me feel like, oh yeah, those who need to be here will be here, and that was true. We had plenty of ideas and energy. And going back to the voting, I didn't have any idea until people say, "Oh yeah, I saw Lynn over at Bevan Arts." I think I got the right place. Or it was at Graham Library. And some of the other folk here know how she would fill in, and we really had to have an agreement with libraries that we will staff that, because that's one of their responsibilities, to be sure that voter registration is offered. But anyway, she was all over the place, and I just finally decided she's doing it. But every now and then I'd have that little nudge in myself and say, I need to be more supportive. So I came down here one Saturday, I think it was, to the country store that's called, and she was already all set up with all the materials, because we don't just hand the form and say, take this and fill it out and take it to the Board of Elections. We help people understand what they're agreeing to do. So I sat down with her and I thought, why did I do this? She knows everybody down here. She knows who's already registered. She knows that who she can reach out to. And I think sometimes she wished I'd just go on home. Because I was aggressive sometimes. She knew, don't mess with that person. They'll come around maybe. If they don't. Okay. The other thing that I noticed with Lynn is that she'd take on things that I didn't even dream of asking her to do, because she had so much going on. And I'd send out an email to about 50 people saying, you need to be in touch with Tom Tillis, with Nunn, I think that's his name, he was very invisible. And I'd send out the email and I'd say, we need to be in touch with so-and-so about so-and-so. And I tell you the truth, I don't know how in the world, I don't know how in the world she beat that email to her house. when I would look at my email, she'd say, done. She didn't say any more about me needing to do it. And I found out that she and a few others were really on it all the time. I think probably because there's some other time on the agenda here for those of you who don't talk as long as I do. I do have a mentor over there with Barrett, with Mr. President, and he knows I have bad habits. Bad habit is one more thing. Well, one more thing that I'm going to say today, I think, even though it go on about my loving and caring of Lynn, and not feeling I did what all I would do had I not gotten so scared of COVID and not go out. But I keep in mind, a true friend is never truly gone. Their spirit lives on in the memories of those who love them. And there's a room full of folks, and we can do lots. And I imagine we're gonna hear a lot about Lynn did this or she did that. So she'll still role model for us on down the road. Thank y'all for having me. I got any stuff, it's not mine.
Thank you, Dana. Your words were quintessential here. Next up, we're gonna open up the mic. If anybody would like to come up, just come on up, say what you need to say. A couple memories would be good, and just be mindful that we do have a lot of people here in this big celebration that Mom didn't want. All right, I do have one. Someone sent me somewhere. Come on up. You'll be right after this. Unfortunately, one of our good neighbors himself couldn't be here. His father instead is here, but his name is Tanu, or Danme, as some of my friends may have known him. And I'm going to play his words from this video that he sent me last night. Give me just a second. Technical stuff.
My name is Tanu Patnaik, and my parents and I had the pleasure of being next door neighbors to the Davis family in Chapel Hill for several years. I recall first meeting Mrs. Davis when I was a teenager, just finishing up high school, getting ready to go to college. And what I remember about my very first interaction with her was her warmth, as well as her friendly personality. Whenever she would see me outside, she would make it a point to smile, to walk over, say hello, and ask me about how school was going. And from the conversations that we had, it was clear that she genuinely cared about people. I recall several instances when she came over unprompted, and she brought us one of her baked specialties. Sometimes it was banana bread. Another time, I think it was pecan rolls. Yeah. And we would chat for a few minutes to catch up. What I remember, and what struck me about those moments, was really how giving she was of herself. As a teacher, she dedicated so much of her time to helping children and teaching them during their formative years. What I admire about Mrs. Davis is no matter how busy she was, she always made time for people that she cared about. One of the lessons that I would say I have learned from her has been the importance of reaching out to people, whether that's spending quality time with family or reconnecting with friends that we haven't seen in a while. For many of us, I think the experience of going through a pandemic has especially driven that point home. Now, I think of Mrs. Davis often, and I wish for her soul to be at peace. I'm glad that family members and close friends have gathered together and are sharing their stories and their precious memories. Know that her spirit and her guidance lives on in each and every one of you. And Tim, she is so proud of you. The fact that you and your dad spent as much time as you did with your mom, caring for her, meant so much to her. I have known you since childhood, and I'm impressed at the fine young man that you have grown up to become. And finally, I want for Mr. Davis and Tim to know that we're just a short distance away. So if there's any way that we can help, we're happy to talk or meet with you at any time. Thank you.
Please, Mr. Patniak, sorry if I mispronounced your name. If you would stand and just wave real quick. And please let Danu know how grateful we are for his words, and we're sending thoughts and prayers to him as well. Okay, so with that being done, now anyone else who would like to come up and speak, we're going to start here with our neighbor, our neighbor Mary here. So yeah, here we go.
Hi. I'm short. My name is Mary, and we met Reed and Lynn after they moved in. We kind of live at the end of the cul-de-sac in the woods, of course. But when my husband died, Lynn was so, I'm gonna cry. She was so giving and caring. One day she walked through the trees in the dirt and brought me some flowers, just out of nowhere. Because my husband passed away 4 years ago. But in the process of all this, I'd find little cakes and breads and stuff on my table because it was gone all the time. And then I told Lynn one day, I said, you know, the animals are gonna eat it. And she said, well, I'll just bring more. But she was a great neighbor, and she loved Reed, and she always talked about Tim and Opie the dog. Opie was very special to her. But she was such a warm and giving person. Everybody that met her knew that. And I was very honored to know her and love her. And thank you. Thank you, Reed. Reed's always been there to help John and I, and Tim, and couldn't ask for better neighbors. But just thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Don't hesitate. If you want to come up, just come on up.
Okay, I met Lynn at the dog park because I met Reed first and his little Opie. And one day, Tim and Lynn came with them. Now, I have this big hound dog named Rosie, and so she decided she hated Tim. Just barked and barked and barked and barked and barked. And that day, I also happened to bring my adopted daughter, who is African American, with me, and she also has autism. So my eyes are kind of keeping on her, keeping on this dog. And because Sarah can sometimes just blah, 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 blah. And I looked over, and this is the first time Lynn has ever met Sarah. And she is sitting there, she's pulled her chair over to Sarah, and she's got Sarah's hand. And Sarah's just blah, 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 blah. And Lynn has this beautiful look on her face, and they're just chatting away. And I thought, wow, what a cool person. And that is the memory of Lynn, and that is why I'm here. And you guys were so lucky. She was awesome. So now my dog doesn't bark at me anymore. All right.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Honor. I was really fortunate to become very close with Tim in high school, and really inseparable for some years. And Reed and Tim took me in, and you know, basketball and music and video games and you know, stuff that teenagers do. I read somewhere that true humility is doing something for someone and hoping that person never finds out. And Lynn really embodied that. And you know, just she's, you know, to say it frankly, she's made me a better person by proxy. Being a teenager, you know, when we're really close to each other, and like, you know, I'm thinking of that green Honda Odyssey, and you know, and you don't realize it at the time. And to be honest, I didn't feel like doing it at the time, but help me with these creamed corn cans, and you know, and you know, little things. I remember she would take us to Unitarian Youth Group, and you know, I'm thinking of that quote because I didn't realize it at the time, but you know, I live in Los Angeles now, and I attend Unitarian Church there, and you know, there's just the hallmarks of her personality: kindness, compassion. You know, in high school, you know, got into, you know, did stuff that teenagers do, and she always provided us with understanding and an ear, and great advice, and was so patient with us. Patience and understanding. You know, it's you know, it's truly, you know, she provided such a great example. You know, you know, no one's perfect, but she's damn close. You know, and to have such a perfect example be a part of my life in whatever capacity is divine, truly. You know, I don't mean to be quote heavy, but I've also heard that love is repeated action rooted in devotion. And, you know, there was a list of people that came up and talked about her actions, you know, and a few years removed, you know, and I can't remember some things, especially with the pandemic, I can't remember some things that happened last week and, you know, last month, but I can remember Lynn's smile, and I can remember her kindness like I saw her yesterday. So.
Hi, my name is Kathy, and I have the pleasure of knowing Lynn as a neighbor in Chapel Hill. Lived around the cul-de-sac from Denise and Lynn. And but a lot of us, I knew the depth of her life beyond being my neighbor, and being the fact that she was the second grade teacher to two of my nieces, who have very different personalities. And so the first one, Sophie, was the talkative one, and so sometimes I would talk to Lynn in the afternoon, after school and stuff like that, and she'd be like, "Oh, Sophie wore me out today." And then the other niece, Clara, was the quiet one, get her to speak. And so Lynn was always like trying to pull her out and bring her out. And it was so wonderful to see her as a teacher and watch how she was with young kids and really pulling them up from wherever they were in their lives, whatever they were dealing with in their lives, and helping them to become the best versions of themselves. So my memory of her is as a wonderful neighbor, as we've all experienced that, but also as a really wonderful teacher. And that's, I think, what we're really grateful to have had with her. So you guys were very blessed. We all were. Thank you.
I'm a cousin. And Nita alluded to that Lynn is the first cousin, and I want you all to know, because it's wonderful hearing about her life, but she's also like the oldest cousin of a huge family. And some of us are here today, and we've gathered as family since I was an infant in 1960. Regular reunions all our lives, and Lynn has always been there, and everything you've said about her loving, gentle kindness. I mean, Nancy was just reminded me of how one of our cousins has cerebral palsy, and in our mind is Lynn, who is often taking care of her, you know, as one of her cousins. And she's just someone you can always rely on. When Dave and I got married, we're the cousins from California. Lynn was at my wedding, you know, and she's just, I think about her, and over the years, she's really taught me about family. When our oldest got married, she came to the wedding, you know, with Reed. A lot of this is Reed too, you know. And I think when you guys visited us in LA, you know, and it might seem like small things, but just really representing family, and which is very meaningful to our big extended family. She just has really embodied that for me. Speaking, this is kind of what's making me want to cry. My parents are 92. I just came, I guess, yesterday from them in California. My mom is just recalling when she was so excited when Lynn was born, her first little niece. And so I just got her talking the other day about getting to hold baby Nita and baby Lynn, and how, I don't know, just thinking about how life goes on, and the importance of family. And so my parents are very sad that they couldn't be here. They're not traveling that great right now. They hope to get to reunion, but that's not a given. But they wanted you all to know how much they love Lynn, and they really wish they could be here. And I know my other siblings, they all know this is going on today, and send their love too. But I wanted you to know how much she represents this large family too. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone who has come up and shared something regarding my mom, Lynn. One last call if anyone has anything else they want to add before we move on here.
Hi, my name is Nancy, and Reed is my uncle. And I first met Lynn at a family reunion at my cousin Mark's house. And what struck me the most about her was her selflessness and how good she was for Reed. She was just the best possible person that he could be with. I was also a first grade teacher at the time, so she and I used to trade war stories about teaching first grade, but listening to everybody today, it's the word that keeps coming up is compassionate and gentle and genuine. And she's really one of the most selfless people that I've ever met. And the world, I think we are all so lucky to have had her touch all of our lives, whether it's a little tap from my preemie grandson, or just listening to others speak. And just want to thank Lynn, in whatever realm of the universe that she's in. Thank you for sharing you with us. We are all better for it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Brown, and I met Lynn when we both worked as teacher assistants at Sewell Elementary School. And I would confide in her and tell her about all my issues with the children and with some of the staff. And she would give me good advice. And so we were friends way back. And I noticed that I'm probably one of the only other African Americans that spoke in her behalf. But she was one of the best friends that anyone could ever have. And so she moved up to teaching, and I continued to work as an assistant and then moved into being an inclusion facilitator. And she retired first, and then later I retired. And we met again at the Millennium Fitness Center. And we were both, doing the water aerobics. Of course, she was way on the other end, but she was so much taller. and I would just stand, and close to the side. But she would say, keep on going, you can do it. And so she was always inspiring me. And so then we met up again at the retiree luncheons, because all of the teachers would get together on occasions and meet for lunch. And then one day she invited me, she said, you know what, let's just go, just you and me. And we went, I believe it was somewhere in this facility here, because it was close by where you all lived. And that was so much fun. And then she showed me where she lived, beautiful, beautiful home, and invited me in, and it was just wonderful. And then she later became one of my customers, because I started selling Mary Kay products. And she became one of my best customers. And so I really miss her. I really do. But it was so wonderful. Everybody that spoke did such a beautiful job. And thank you for inviting me, Tim and Reed. I really appreciate it. And if anybody needs any Mary Kay, I've got some cards. Y'all have a great day.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but then I heard about there was one of the few African Americans in the room, and I know how important diversity was to Lynn. And if I could hear a white lady speak for the NAACP and a white man speak for the Black Lives Matter, I'm representing the Democratic women. And then I'll round out the diversity. Well, first of all, thank Tim and Reed for sharing Lynn with us.
Yeah.
It struck me that I didn't know her name was Esther. And I'm not going to wax ecumenical or biblical or theological, but Lynn was a reader of books as a purely literary device. I want to lift Esther from the Bible.
Yeah.
Esther was, to make a long story short, she was a woman, a queen, a person of privilege who could have relaxed in ease and comfort and not concerned herself with the cares of the less fortunate. But she felt compelled to get involved and make a difference and save a group of people, a nation of people. And I feel like Esther, our Lynn, kind of got in the way. She could have lived a life of quiet privilege and tended her gardens and tended to her own affairs. But she got involved and got in the way and made a practical use of her time here as an example to us all. And I want to say thank you for the privilege of having to work alongside of her and with not all the organizations, but a couple of them. And I'm gonna have to figure out how she got all those extra hours in the day to do all that. But thank you so much for sharing her with us.
Yeah. Great job.
Well, it's my turn now. I'm Reed Davis. And all all this past year, you know, every time we go to, she was being treated by doctors at Duke. Every time we come in, it'd have to be, this is Esther Lynn Semones Davis, 12/1/1947. That was always the, you had to say it every time you showed up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it got to the point, I said once to one of the people that checked us in, how about if I just get a recording? You know, it's the same thing every time. But, okay, I married Lynn. She married me. Tim married me and I married Tim. Now, this is gonna be hard. Yet in many ways, pretty easy for me to discuss the love of my life for the last 30 years. I'm gonna cry.
That's all right. That's okay.
I look over at my kids, my grandkids.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow. You've already heard about her kindness. I'm reading now. You've already heard about her kindness, thoughtfulness, her caring, quiet confidence, and concern for other people. And all that's true. I'd like to share some thoughts of Lynn from my perspective. Might be a little different. Lynn was a strongly independent woman with a feisty spirit almost all of her life. I was told as a child, one of her often heard comments was, "I can do it myself." From the time she practically learned to walk, I can do this myself. And she could. As an adult, she independently purchased a small home by herself. She got all the financing put together. She did all this alone. She had advice from family, but she did it. And then, for over 2 years, she worked to qualify to adopt an African-American son as a single parent in Oklahoma. That is not easy. It's not easy any place. Oklahoma has its own issues, of course. I have said that she and Tim has had a perfectly good life before I ever came into it. 3 years after she adopted Tim, I asked him if the three of us could get married. Lynn said yes. So I went to Tim. I said, "Tim, can we get married?" He said, "No. I'm too little." I count it a privilege to be allowed to share their lives. I became a rich man. A rich man. In many, many ways. Now, she had a strong sense of right and wrong. She was slow to anger, but buddy, let me tell you, if she was, watch out. She would let you know in very simple, easily understood words that angered her. She would let you know. Never yelling, but she would let you know. She was socially liberal in her view of life, but also fiscally conservative on financial things. She would actively protest in public marches and public meetings against injustice, racism, and legislative arrogance. For years, she sat patiently outside the county public library registering red voters. Now, you've heard that she taught school. She taught school in Oklahoma. She taught school in North Carolina. By all measures, she was a superb teacher who loved her job and loved the kids she taught. Off on the side, we've gotten so many comments from former students and mothers of students at how they appreciated her teaching them and their children. One example I'd like to cite that I've cited in other times is occurred a few years before she retired. She was given what I called an international class. Out of 20 students, only 4 spoke English in their home. The other 16 spoke Korean, there was 8 of those, Icelandic, 1 of those, Hindi, Indian, 2 of those, Russian, 1 of those, and Spanish, there were 4, but they were 2 different types of Spanish. And I'm proud to say she had them reading and doing arithmetic at grade level or above by the end of the school year. Now I'm going to tell you one story I didn't even write down. And I debated telling this story, but I'm going to. This exhausted her. She worked so hard. So hard that she would just be exhausted when she got home. One day, she got home and we had a slight downward slope to our driveway. She got stopped to get the mail and did not take the car out of gear. It went down and hit the house. She ran after it. And I kept saying to her, what were you going to do if you caught it? And I believe it was Denise called me and said, your wife is standing out in the driveway saying some very foul words, stomping her foot.
I don't think I'd ever heard Lynn say those
So, so just to show you, she is real. She did know the words. And she was always a teacher. She taking Tim and me and other kids, any that she could gather up to music concerts, museums, historic places, monuments, really boring stuff for the kids. But by golly, she's going to teach them. She's going to show them. She's going to make sure they understand the importance of it. She would go hiking with knowledgeable guides and take kids along with her. She identified animals, plants, those kinds of things. Now, moving on to another subject, Lynn was very eco-conscious and hated waste. She noted that many of her students, she found her students would throw away bananas without eating them at the cafeteria. So, knowing how she did things and the way she thought, she told them if they would bring her bananas, she would make banana bread. The kids thought that was wonderful, so they went around and picked up bananas from all the classes. And honestly, it did get a little out of hand. And before she could further tell her students that it was only for her class, they brought all that in. But she honored her commitment. She made a bunch of banana bread and then told the students, no. This. So after that, only her students gave her bananas. Visitors to our home thought we were a little strange, and we were probably. Definitely she was committed. They'd be surprised if she'd take time to wash the inside of Ziploc bags instead of throwing them away. And people say, what are you doing? You can reuse these. Nothing wrong with them. We'll just wash them out. So she, just by her actions, we're teaching, conservative, I guess you might say. And she's concerning with the landfills. Now she did have a sense of humor. She had a razor sharp sense of humor. Never malicious, but often mischievous. I once teased her that she should be glad that I married her because she was destined to be an old maid schoolmarm from Oklahoma. And she said, you're full of it. Now, I don't know exactly what she meant by it. And she was too much of a lady to explain, but I think in context it was half a word. Last year, it's been a long year. And yet it's been a very fast year. She was diagnosed with a grade 2 tumor that soon turned into a grade 4 brain tumor. She was a warrior. She knew it would be fatal. She took on a challenge of living the fullness of her life. And doing things she wanted to do. And not using the tumor as an excuse to stop her from living her life. We traveled to Texas. We traveled to Oklahoma. We traveled all around North Carolina. She loved the Outer Banks. We did things she enjoyed doing, regardless of her diagnosis. She told the doctors at one time that she wanted a quality life. She did not want a quantity life. She wanted quality. And these doctors were associated with Duke. And I've often said that they treated her like she was the only patient they had. Again, I'm going off my script here for a minute. One of our doctors was named Dr. Kazarol. He was the oncologist. And we were talking about the massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the 100th anniversary of it, and we were going to go back for it. And he said, and she said something to the effect of, told him about it, and he said, I'd never heard of it. And she said, I'd never heard of it either until I was out of college. But by golly, people are going to hear about it now. So that moved over into John Hope Franklin. I don't know how many people know John Hope Franklin. And I said, or actually she said to the doctor, you don't know John Hope Franklin? You pass his building. The building was named for him every day when you come to work. So then she had me go dig out some books on John Hope Franklin, make copies of the front page and the back page so he could order. And the next time we had a meeting or session with him, she made sure he had that. Now you know who John Hope Franklin is if you read this book. Anyhow, I diverge. Tim and I were very proud to stand beside her, and as best we could, made her comfortable and supported her in her travels. One I made a big mistake with, and wished to have this quality life. The one I made a mistake with, I thought, hey, I got an idea. Let's rent a motorhome, right? And let's travel in the motorhome. And she could sleep on the bed while we traveled. And Tim liked to describe it as like riding a school bus on the back seat. So, yeah, okay, we're gonna shut that down. So, it took us 2 days to get to almost, into Tennessee, and it took us like 3/4 of a day to get back, because let's get back home. On December the 8th, 1 week after her 74th birthday, she left us. In the presence of her family, who were on a Zoom call. If I can get through this. Her sister Mary was here with us. She left us at 7:10 in the evening. They had a regularly scheduled Zoom, the family, and they were, she couldn't see too well by then, but she could hear, and she could hear this banter going on between two brothers and two sisters and going on, and they could see her. Tim then said to me, Dad, something's wrong with Mom, and she was having difficulty breathing, so I called the hospice nurse, and she said they're right over. So, Tim was softly singing a shared childhood song with her. So those were the last words she heard. Meanwhile, the rest of the family called their children, called the cousins, called other folks who joined immediately the Zoom call. So she was in the presence of family. When she left, this part I'm going to have trouble getting through. I got a gift, just for an instant. The line between earth and heaven faded, for me, where I could see the other side. I watched her leave. It was sacred. It was holy. That moment will stay with me forever. Lynn.
Amen.
Before I start, I gotta say, I haven't cried yet, but I probably will here. Again, thank you everybody for being here today and sharing your words. So much stuff that even I didn't know. Just, I'm mind boggled a little bit. It's gonna be tough for me to get through this. Honestly, when I sat down to write these words, I didn't know how to start this. I mean, how can I possibly condense 33 years of love and life into just a few minutes? My mom was truly one of a kind. You've already heard. She adopted me as a single mother working full-time as a teacher. A single white woman adopting a black child. Knowing Mom lived through the 1950s and the 1960s when racism was the public norm, if not the law. And white people didn't even want black people in the same swimming pool as them or drink from the same water fountain. And she still chose to adopt me. Mom is what Dr. Martin Luther King envisioned during his I Have a Dream speech. I never realized how much commitment, desire, and determination that it takes to be a parent, let alone a single parent, until recently, living vicariously through some of my friends. Not only was Mom single when she adopted me, but there was a 2-generation age difference between us, and different cultures as well. I can't speak on Mom's younger days, so thank you, Nita. And we're gonna have a slideshow after this to just encapsulate a fraction of what those days were like, and others. My mom believed, yes, yes to peace, no, no to violence, and that hate is not a family value. Never once did I hear hateful words come from my mom's mouth, even when she was angry. My mom never even spanked me, as she probably could have several times. And maybe she was onto something though, because I absolutely hated going to timeout. But timeout is where I learned how to tie my shoes on my own. So thanks, Mom. As you've heard, Mom was a teacher, not just in the classroom, but at home as well. One of my favorite things as a child was reading Mom's field guides from the Audubon Society that covered birds, snakes, animals, and insects. I still remember an interactive history book she bought for me that would quiz you on the chapters after reading them. It had a built-in keypad with codes that corresponded to the chapters. I mean, this thing was ahead of its time. And that's how I learned about the Lusitania, World War II, ancient Egypt, and so many other historical events at a young age. Thank you, Mom. I remember being late for school one day, and while Mom drove me to school, she saw another young boy walking towards school. She wanted to stop and give him a ride, but I was the new kid. I was embarrassed, you know, if you ever been in that situation. No, I don't know if they like me. But I just kept saying, no, Mom, just go, just take me to school. And she did. I found out later, she went back, picked him up, drove him the rest of the way to school. That's just the type of person that Mom was. Mom made sure that I had an abundance of Black and African history around me growing up. From Galimotos to celebrating Kwanzaa, telling me about Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Fred Hampton, way before school ever got around introducing them into the syllabus. Mom even got stories and myths from Africa to read to me, like Anansi the spider and so many more. One of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had was seeing the King Tut exhibit at the Chicago Natural History Museum. I got to see King Tut's burial mask, and on another trip, a T-Rex. Wow. As I've grown older, I've come to realize that I have more Black culture and African culture in my home than a lot of other Black people that I've met. My mom did that. She made that happen. My mom wanted me to know that Black history is more than just what the United States and the world will tell you about slavery and our culture. I always thought my mom was the smartest person that I knew. I mean, anytime that I got hurt or felt sick, she used the medical knowledge that she gained from being Uncle Doc's secretary. If you couldn't tell, Uncle Doc was a doctor. She would diagnose me. Mom had a special way of making me feel better and calming me down when I was thinking too much, or recognizing when I was actually sick. I did try to fake a couple times and she caught on. Mom was also one of the healthiest people I've ever known. She loved her spinach salads, spinach nachos, spinach with fish, her Dr. Pepper, Arby's, and swimming. Mom made it through life, never once having smoked a cigarette, never once having even been drunk. She never even, I didn't inhale with weed or anything else. I mean, just think about that for a second. How incredible is that? When I was a child, I used to cry out at night, every night, for my mom. I found out later that some adopted children are traumatized and develop a separation anxiety, and that I was not alone in that experience. And Mom always came and would lay next to me, sing me to sleep, tell me a story, or just let me lay on her chest and listen to her heartbeat until I fell asleep. Mom cared, not just about me, but about the planet. She always picked up trash when we went out places. And I honestly used to get really annoyed. Like, Mom, how are you doing that? Especially when we were going to a movie or a restaurant and Mom would walk way out of our path, maybe 5 steps, just to pick up a piece of trash, or 2, or 3. I think Dad and I eventually had to convince Mom only to pick up 1 piece of trash at one point, because Mom could literally pick up trash all day, every day. I thought it would make us late to the movie. It never did. Some of my friends thought it was weird. But now I know Mom was doing what she felt was her part to keep the earth, our shared home, clean. I can remember as a kid one Saturday morning where Mom, Dad, and I went to pick up trash on the hill next to our home. Of course, I wanted to watch X-Men and Spider-Man, but Mom made picking up the trash fun. Like, what? She even made a trash picker-upper, so we didn't have to bend over every time. And quite frankly, as amazing as Spider-Man is, my mom's the real hero. My mom loved to garden. Every home that we lived in had some type of garden. It seemed to me Mom loved nothing more than to be outside in the dirt, planting and taking care of her garden. I didn't understand it. I mean, why do you want to get all hot, sweaty, and dirty when you can stay inside in the air conditioning and play video games and watch TV? Honestly, I have to laugh a little bit, because we used to have a rule about TV time at the house growing up. No more than 2 hours a day. And believe you me, Mom kept track of my 2 hours diligently. One summer in high school, I remember making a deal with Mom that for every minute that I spent playing video games or watching TV, I had to go outside and make 1 basket per minute, like, 1 for 1. I racked up thousands of baskets worth of debt. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure Mom ever really collected. But I also remember the fun that I had that summer with Honorog. Frog was his nickname that I gave him, Pendial, and the other kids in my neighborhood, playing basketball, cricket, freeze tag, and any other game you can imagine a group of kids in a cul-de-sac could come up with. Mom always believed in me. When I wanted to skateboard, her only request was that I wear a helmet and pads. Eventually, I got her to agree to just a helmet and eventually nothing. But I know now that she just wanted me to be safe. I actually got grounded from skateboarding in 6th grade because I didn't wear my helmet or pads, and wouldn't you know this, the day after I got grounded and my dad confiscated my skateboard, Mom took me to the skate park and bought me a brand new Tony Hawk birdhouse deck. And I rode that thing until it didn't have a tail and eventually snapped in half. She even took me to Camp Lake Owen one summer, which is the infamous Camp Woodward, and that was a dream for extreme sports enthusiasts. I mean, I'm pretty sure my friends here that I skated with could tell you, like, that would have been paradise. On a rainy day, Mom and Dad took TJ Mayani and Tyler Meskel and I to the skate park in Raleigh, literally just because we asked. When I played basketball and had the opportunity to train one-on-one with Chapel Hill legend Renzino Smith, Mom didn't hesitate to sign me up. And honor came too. When I started rapping and making music, Mom came to every big show that I had. She bought my CDs. I mean, it's my mom. I'm gonna give it to her for free. She even bought a sweatshirt. Mom drove me to Wake Tech to check out their video game design program, even though nothing really came from that visit. And when I started getting interested in voice acting or martial arts, Mom encouraged me to go give it a shot. When I wanted to write a story and illustrate it myself, Mom bought me a sketch pad and 100 colored pencils. I don't even think I've cracked them colored pencils open and I think about it. These are just an iota of the things that Mom did. Things weren't always the best. I went through rough patches as a teen, a little bit rougher than normal teenage angst. But through the yelling, the leave me alones, the don't touch me's, Mom always made time to listen. She even made an AOL Instant Messenger screen name, just so we could talk if I ever wanted to. How many parents do that? I mean, sometimes she just wanted to give me a hug, and I had this thing, I think it's called haplophobia. But I hated being touched by others for a while, and Mom would try to reach out and touch me, and I was like, no. Mom remembered for years after that I didn't like being touched unannounced, and would always ask me first, can I give you a love pat? I know now how much she just wanted to give me a hug and comfort me when I was feeling down. And Lord knows what I would do for just one more love pat, one more hug from my mama. I was so caught up in my own stuff that I didn't take the time to look at what Mom was going through. I mean, sometimes, as we all know, mamas need a hug from their sons, from their children, just as much as we need a hug from them. One time, Mom was on a cross-country road trip by herself to Tulsa. She called me just to tell me a story of how she met a young woman with a baby who just looked like she needed help. Mom detoured her route to buy diapers, a bit of food, and a hotel room for this young woman. And that's just the type of person that my mom was. One good memory I have of Mom is that when I was younger, she took me to an arcade, because I love video games. And she played Street Fighter 2 with me. She kicked my butt, hitting me with Hadoukens, while I struggled to even get a good hit in. Mom made me rage quit playing Street Fighter. And that memory today is still one of the reasons I don't play Street Fighter. When I moved to Texas, my folks took me to the National Video Game Museum. And there, Mom, the video game prodigy, beat me in Bushido Blade. On both of those occasions, she claimed she didn't know what she was doing, and in gamer terms was just button mashing. But I'm not buying that. Sometimes, Mom had some naivety when it came to a few things. But hey, we all do. No one knows everything. But also, Mom knew a lot more than I gave her credit for. Mom knew that there are monsters and scary things out in the world. And she protected me from them and always made me feel safe. But when I was ready, she told me about those monsters and those scary things. And you know the thing about monsters? When you turn on the lights, those monsters aren't so scary anymore. Mom provided that light. As you heard, Mom and Dad helped me move to Texas. And living in Texas was hard for me. Mom, along with Dad, came to see me in Texas in 2020, for my birthday, and we all got COVID. A part of me thinks that if they hadn't came, if they hadn't got COVID, that Mom would still be here today. But as my cousin Jenny Byrne, Mary's daughter, who's a doctor, said, your parents made an adult decision on their own and nothing could change their minds. I truly am grateful now that Mom and Dad came, and just for that week, I felt okay. I didn't feel lonely. I felt that I had family. We watched Cloud Atlas, Starlight, a documentary about Quincy Jones even, while just relaxing and enjoying being together. And in 2021, when I decided to move back to North Carolina to help Mom, to help Dad help Mom, she rode across country with a brain tumor just to help her boy come home. The brain tumor. When I first heard that Mom had a brain tumor, I knew what it meant. I came to visit in April, and I was just so relieved to be home and spend time with Mom and Dad. When I moved back at the end of July here to North Carolina, the night that I arrived home, there was a meal cooked and cookies fresh out of the oven waiting for me that Mom had made. To be honest, the chicken wasn't cooked very well, and the cookies were still a little bit raw. That was one of the best meals I've ever had. I cried while I was eating it, just thinking, Mom has a brain tumor, but she still cooked a meal for me to come home to. I told Mom the next day. She just smiled and said, I didn't know you were coming. It just happened to work that way. Okay. Well, even if that is the truth, I'm glad it worked out that way. Thank you, Mom. This isn't about me. But I have to say that in 2011, I had an epiphany that led me to build a stronger relationship with both of my parents. And I'm so glad that I was receptive to that epiphany. In these last 10 years, my mom has been my best friend. At one point in time, I lost everything. Like, really. All my money had gone to pay for repairs for a house that I rented with my roommates, and they ended up trashing the place and not picking up the phone when the rental company called. And so that we wouldn't face legal action, I paid for it. All my friendships were gone, save for a few online gaming buddies like my friend Jonathan. I was sick with gastrointestinal issues, and I couldn't move without being in pain. It was my lowest time. And I know that I would not be here if not for Mom and Dad. Mom welcomed me home, allowed me the time that I needed to get my mind right and get my body right. She never said, get off the video game or go get a job, or as Dad would say, go get a sellable skill. Or anything else. Starting in 2011, we had daily conversations. Excuse me. I was letting Mom and Dad back in my life. And when I would visit, Mom would sit and listen to me talk about what I was going through, even if I ended up telling her the same thing over and over and over and over again, for hours at a time, week after week. Mom became more than a mom, more than a friend. She became someone that I felt safe talking to. One little side down, I'm going on for a while, but thank you for your understanding. I remember watching one of my favorite shows, Dragon Ball Super actually. Tournament to save the whole universe, and the old teacher's name's Master Roshi went up against a foe and sacrificed his body to make sure that his students, the main characters of the show, could ensure victory and keep the universe from being destroyed. And I cried. I don't know why, but I cried. And Mom came downstairs and said, "What's wrong?" And she watched Dragon Ball with me a couple times, but it wasn't her thing. And I just told her, through tears and blubbering like a baby, Master Roshi just died. Spoiler, sorry. And she just sat there with me, and I was good. In 2017, during that time when I was at my lowest point, when I was having the darkest thoughts, Mom, better than any therapist, sat down and listened to me. She was patient with me, along with Dad and Opie. They helped me get back to a positive place. And I'm so glad that we got that time together, because I know going through what I went through and the thoughts that I was having, some people never get that chance. Before I left for Texas, Mom reassured me. She said, "Tim, go try it, hon. You need to go. You'll never know what could have happened if you don't go. And if you need to, you can come back here at any time. You will always have a home here." And that's really what gave me the juice to take that step. When I moved back to North Carolina to take care of Mom, I made it my mission to take care of her to the best of my ability. It never really hit me how sick Mom was until then. Because when I visited in April, or at any time visitors would stop by the house, she pushed past the brain tumor, the cursed brain tumor, to the best of her ability. But even then, I still knew she was sick. Through it all, Mom kept fighting. Several times I questioned myself if I was doing the right thing. And one time, Mom told me, "Tim, I am so glad you're here, because I don't know if I would have the strength to keep going if you weren't." I cried. I told Mom way back in April, shortly after her radiation treatments, "Mom, I love you, and I always want you to be here. But please, if you ever get tired of this and you're ready to go, just say so. Just let us know. It's okay." On Thursday, December 2nd, after a long, almost sleepless night for me and Dad and Mom, I said to our home health care nurse, "If Mom is tired of this and is ready, all she has to do is say so." And Mom was almost nonverbal at that time. But she looked at me and she blinked a few times. And in those blinks, I could tell she was saying, "I'm so tired of this. I'm ready." And later that night is when we called in hospice. The days since Mom passed have been extremely difficult. It all feels like a bad dream. I keep looking back and saying, why was I so stupid as a kid? Why did I say this? Why did I act that way? Why did I, or why didn't I do X, Y, and Z? Because with the good memories, there are some bad memories, and that's mostly on me. But believe it or not, I don't have a single bad memory of my mother. Just memories that I wish I had been better in some situations. But I know Mom understands, and she loves me the same. And she wouldn't want me to beat myself up. In a strange way, Mom is still teaching me to this day. for the longest time, probably since the first time I watched The Land Before Time, my biggest fear was losing my mom. But even after Mom passed, she is still teaching me. One lesson I learned recently is the world hasn't ended. I can still feel Mom's warmth in the sunshine. I can feel her gentleness in the breeze. And every once in a while, I swear, I can feel her give me a love back. This is the last page. Shortly after Mom passed, my Aunt Mary said she had been thinking lately, WWLD, what would Lynn do instead of WWJD? It's because Mom really is just that special, that she could set a precedent for love and kindness on a worldwide level for centuries, if not millennia. Forever is never enough. We all want one more day, one more hug, one more kiss, one more piece of banana bread. Our physical bodies are not immortal. I am honored to be on this planet at the same time as my mom. I'm even more honored that Esther Lynn Semones Davis is my mother and that she called me her son. When I started writing this, I said it. How is it possible to sum this all up? But honestly, I can sum up my mom, her teaching, everything that she was about into one word. And we all know this word. That word is love. Mama, I love you forever. Oh, damn, I'm off key. Hold up. I love you forever. I love you for always. Forever and always. My mama, you'll be. I love you, Mom. I'll find you again in my next life.
Yes.
Thank you all. We have a benediction here that we're going to give. If Elaine Heath would please step forward. Thank you.
If you'd all like to stand as you're able. We had a beautiful celebration remembering our friend, our loved one, Lynn. And as we go forward from this time, we carry her with us. She will always be in our hearts, and her spirit will always inspire us. Our benediction comes from John Philip Newell, Celtic Prayers from Iona. On our hearts and on our homes, the blessing of God. In our coming and in our going, the peace of God. In our lives and in our seeking, the love of God. At our end and new beginning, the arms of God to welcome us and bring us home. Amen.
Always wanted to say this. You may be seated. As we wrap things up here, we have a slideshow with pictures and memories and songs of Mom's life, and we would be honored if you would join us in viewing this slideshow and listening to the words. And after the slideshow is over, we have cookies and drinks, and it would be a time to socialize and just time to celebrate the life of this incredible woman that we were all so lucky and blessed to have a part of for our lives.